Bonjour à tous. Bonjour à tous, bienvenue dans cette conférence. Vous êtes nombreux, malgré la pluie que vous avez bravée. Merci beaucoup. D'abord, un message de service, pardon. Mais voilà, Monsieur Lorenzi en particulier, auriez-vous la gentillesse tous de mettre votre masque? Nous sommes partis pour 3 quarts d'heure de débat sur un sujet particulier. Je dis particulier parce que je vais donner quelques éléments de contexte avant de...
So welcome to you all, and thank you for joining us in such large numbers in spite of the rain. And I'll remind you that you should all be wearing face masks. So we have dedicated 45 minutes to important topic because there are general elections coming up in Germany. Who will come after Angela Merkel? And will it have an impact on the Franco-German partnership? And of course, we're all well aware as well that there's a presidential election coming up in France in April. So who will be the French president for the next 5 years? So there's a certain degree of uncertainty that we'll have to factor in. So we'll talk about the achievements of that Franco-German friendship. There are imbalances as well. The industrial production in France and Germany, 13 compared to 25%. So it is a matter for concern, which is at the heart of this Franco-German partnership. So we will discuss these matters with Peter ALTMAIER. Thank you very much for joining us here in Aix, sir. You are the Federal Minister for Economy and Energy. To your left, Bruno Le Maire. I think you know one another well. You can even say that you are friends. Bruno Le Maire, French Minister for Economy and Finance. Guillaume FAURY, who's at the head of a company, a group that is probably a symbol of European production and European partnership, Airbus. Hello, Mr. FAURY, and Hippolyte, who co-chairs the rencontre and who is going to set the scene with a little bit of history. Yes, thank you, Elizabeth. You can clap for me as well, you know. Apologies. Well, I'd like to start with good news. We're going to talk about the Franco-German partnership, and it's true to say that over the last few years, the Franco-German partnership has been a successful one. Might be a coincidence, it might be a consequence of Brexit, but a few weeks after the European Council voted the withdrawal of the UK from EU, in Aachen, a very important treaty was signed on Franco-German cooperation and integration. There are many important things in this treaty, but very little economy. It's about convergence in business law, which is very important, and it enshrines a number of clauses on cross-border areas, which is very important as well. But there is very little about the economy in that treaty. But what I'd like to say is that it's not that it's not it's not a problem, because there's a lot more in a treaty than what's actually enshrined in it. The 22nd of January 2019, which was when that treaty was signed, of course, was the anniversary of the Elysee Treaty on the 22nd of January 1963, signed by, of course, Konrad Adenauer and General de Gaulle. and the economy had already become a supranational. Remember Schumann's declaration, which was fairly incredible in the 1950s, which was to suggest that the production of coal and steel be placed under the authority of the same joint entity. So the Franco-German cooperation has resulted in many achievements. In 1969, the French minister and the German ministers signed the mythic A300, and that was the birth of a great company. On the 22nd of January in 1988, in addition to the Élysée Treaty on cooperation on economic matters, and a few years later, the Maastricht Treaty was signed by a number of European countries, and it's supposed to be, trendy to criticize this Élysée Treaty these days, but it has paved the way for cooperation on macroeconomy. So when large states cooperate, it bears fruit. We can talk about that wonderful milestone of with taxing multinational companies. Who could have thought a few years back? So that was a major achievement. And there are industrial matters. So it is a challenge, and it's at least as complicated as taxing multinationals, because the French industry and German industry are different. They have different dynamics, and the strategic choices that have been made are different. But in spite of that, and thanks to this renewed Franco-German partnership, European projects have come about. It's on hydrogen, on connectivity, to name only a few. So, Franco-German friendship can sound a bit outdated or diplomatic jargon, but I'm really glad we can discuss it some more here, and that we have such distinguished panelists to discuss it. What I suggest we might do is for you gentlemen, Mr. FAURY and ALTMAIER and ALTMAIER, tell us what is most important to you in terms of this Franco-German partnership. In 5 minutes, Mr. ALTMAIER, do you want to go first? Yes, well, thank you for inviting me in this wonderful meeting, and I'm extending the best wishes from the Chancellor. Well, you are right, sir. We succeeded in different frameworks and on different scales. The institutional scale, but as a French intern said 30 years ago in the Bundestag, yes, there are institutional frameworks, that's all well and good, but to do what? Well, to me, it's about raising to three big world challenges. And, young people call them eco, techno. So the environmental or ecological challenge. Our sons and daughters, our grandchildren. So we need, for their sake, to better protect the planet. And the Paris Accord, which will remain the Paris Accord for the next 100 years, is the basis for action, a transformation that's almost revolutionary in scale of everything we do in our daily lives and in terms of economy. Secondly, economic challenge that is characterized by a breaking point, you know, with Indonesia, South Korea, China, India, and other industrialized countries that have become real competitors. And the need from in this economic challenge, there's a need to organize an ecological transformation to enhance our living standards and the power of our economies on a world scale, and that is threatened by the evolution I mentioned. And the third challenge is technological, because we are going through a fast digital transformation. And in the past, we've wasted time with a lot of discussions. And we succeeded in the resilience plan, the recovery plan between President Macron and Chancellor Merkel. And over the last 3 years with Bruno Le Maire, we've had a very close cooperation, closer than ever in our economic policies. We've set aside ideological concerns, and we started working on an industrial policy that is now widely accepted by the 27 member states. Industrial policy that has made it possible for us to launch actual concrete projects. The electric vehicles will require batteries that will represent a third of their value, and this is how we can engineer the a stimulus package to the battery industry that will create tens of thousands of jobs in Europe. And that's what we call the important project, common European project. Of course, there's also the nexus between renewable energy and the industry. And there's a project on the cloud, a European cloud. The point is to demonstrate a leadership on the world scale, and to that end, we need to show that there's leadership, Franco-German leadership, and our partners, all the more so after Brexit, are no longer afraid of Franco-German cooperation. They no longer fear the power of this cooperation. And every time we've proven able to reach an agreement on hydrogen, on batteries, on cloud solutions, we found that there was unanimous support on a European scale. Thank you very much, Bruno, for this cooperation, which is proving so effective. We have to do our utmost. You know, all of you, between academia, I'm thinking of economic sciences, to really lay a strong, robust foundations for this Franco-German cooperation in terms of economy and technology and industry. Thank you very much. Bruno Le Maire. Thank you, Elizabeth, and a huge thanks to Peter for being here. Usually when we get together with Peter, and we've met many times over the last 15 years, he speaks French and I speak German. And I'd like to thank Jean Hervé for the organization, which has even proven to be waterproof this year, so well done. But just a personal note, next time, Jean-Hervé, invite Angela Merkel so we have gender equality on this stage. A few comments to kickstart this debate. I can't help it. I'm going to say that if this session had taken place a year ago, we would have been told that there were disasters coming up, that there was going to be hundreds of thousands of bankruptcies, that unemployment was going to go through the roof, that the EU was going to collapse, that the Eurozone was on the brink of disaster. And actually, we've implemented an economic strategy that has consisted in protecting our employees, our companies, and our industry. So let's give ourselves a pat on the back. The strategy was the right one, and we're on the way to recovery.
And in this success, I think we got years of growth and correction and European sovereignty ahead of us. The second thing that pleases me is that the French-German couple, and it's not limited to Peter and myself. We're not limited to Peter and myself. I insist on that. Well, this couple was very, very efficient, and I have to say that in a political life, and I'm talking on a more personal note, when you are, when you're involved personally on this French-German friendship, when you have the respect, the admiration I have for Germany, its culture, and the importance I give to the link between our two great nations, we've done more in 2 years than was done in the last 20 years in terms of French-German relationships. First, we eliminated several taboos. First one was the industrial policy. Industrial policy, for many Germans, it was like Pompidou, De Gaulle together around the plan. Thank you, François Barrault. You probably noticed that. But in fact, on the German side, they were completely opposed to such a strategy. Peter was brave enough, and I would like to pay tribute to him because he's a very brave political man. And he signed a manifesto for the Franco-German industrial policy 2 years ago. He said we cannot limit ourselves to competition and the confrontation between nations. The competition as an alpha omega of European economic policy. Now we're facing China and the US. We need a true industrial policy in Europe. It was easy for me. It was difficult for Peter to sign this manifesto, but he did it. He survived, and he comes out stronger, and we can certainly congratulate him for that. So, we were told that industry was to grow, economy was to grow. I say this in front of many major industrial managers without any public support from the US were like, spreading money over the industries, space, energy, research. China, which functions, structurally with state support, but Europe was telling you that never any public support for the development of industry and the economy. So, since we didn't want to acknowledge that we did it, we invented a barbaric word. It's called the PIEC, or IPSEI in Anglo-Saxon. And what does it mean? IPSEI or PSEG means that for the first time since 1957, Europe accepts that to develop new technologies, you need public money. Public money is needed. Public support is needed. We'll be stronger, and we've corrected a very old, 30-year-old mistake. Third taboo we destroyed. To finance all this, we accepted to raise debt. I spent my life in Berlin. I remember I went in 2017 to see Wolfgang Schäuble. Schäuble was one of our joint friends and a European political leader for whom I have a lot of respect. Just before the press conference, it was my first press conference as Minister of Finance. He took me aside, Wolfgang, he said, Bruno, he says, talk about what you want, the rain, the good weather, the French. There is one political word you don't say, you know, joint debt. You know, don't say joint debt. It's called it is called the Euro bonds because they all visit, and I mean the French-German relationship will collapse if you say the word debt, joint debt. 4 years later, the German Chancellor Angela Merkel and the French President of the Republic Emmanuel Macron argued for common debt to finance the restart the European plan. They gained this, and with this raising of joint debt, we really make a giant leap in the economic regrowth, third taboo that fell. And because we collapsed taboos, you know, we realized we're just feeling just as well. Just as, you know, as well, we did great achievements. I'll be brief because Peter mentioned them, but, you know, electrical batteries. Well, 2 years ago, there was not electrical battery plant in France. Everything came from China or from South Korea. 2 years later, in 2 years, there will be something for the hydrogen, something for the cloud, for space, and batteries. We've done giant leaps, you know, in a state in front of Guillaume FAURY since the creation of Airbus. I don't think we've achieved as many industrial advances than what we've done in the last 2 years. So what are the challenges ahead? First one is to show that we are not an exclusive couple, but an open couple, which is happy to welcome all the other nations. It's clear that all the European nations should understand that the project are open to all. So second challenge, let's put things on the table, no public finances. If we want this couple to function well, you want to make sure that public finances of France and Germany are too divergent. So we, at a reasonable cost, we'll have to restore French public finance so that we won't be too divergent from our German partners, and we'll be able to talk about it again. I think the major challenge that will concern us, all of us here in Europe, it will be the ecological transition, because we're just at the the first steps, and we need all the intelligence which are in this room to find a solution against global warming. Guillaume FAURY, a couple of words, and then we'll have a conversation with the audience. Well, first, good morning. It's a privilege to be here on this panel to symbolize the success of the French-German relationship. And I want to add controversy to the importance of this relationship and its success. I believe that we are at a point where a certain number of things speed up or change significantly. And they're opportunities, but they can be, difficult changes for Europe and the French-German cooperation. What we see, industrialists, a higher level of complexity of everything we've done, but also higher demand for speed. And in that respect, Europe creates a lot of difficulties because we're 27, because we got rules, and to combine speed and the collective effort is somewhat difficult. And in that respect, the French-German relationship is part of the solution. It's part of the answer to the ability to go fast, and it is essential that this relation should be strong, should be efficient, and even if the fears or dreams are very different between French and Germans, if budgetary policy is not quite the same between France and Germany, if the relationship to defense is not the same, our energy policy is not the same, is not aligned between the two, if the geopolitical orientation, Germany, looking northeast, France south or west, well, all this are reasons, that make the German-French relationship more difficult. But when France and Germany work well together, the solutions we can put together are exceptional. We, Airbus, we are a witness that we can have the French-German relationship in the long term in a very efficient way, and we are also the witness that at a time when a lot of technologies and industries take considerable dimension and the scale and size is essential, well, the US, Europe, China, well, we need to find agreements in Europe to be Europe, and often it starts with France and Germany. So one question which is a bit more difficult, possibly. Maybe, do we need a strong French-German relationship? Of course we do. It has to be a strong. Is it a solution for Europe, or is it a problem for Europe? And you said it, Bruno. Indeed, this relationship has to be very inclusive, but it is difficult because, you know, you have to and train everybody, you know, lead to, and France and Germany have to agree, and sometimes it is perceived as being done to the detriment of other European countries. Airbus shows in long term that first a French-German agreement is necessary. Often it is the start of something very positive. I hope it will be the case for batteries. It has to be the case in hydrogen. It is some of the transition we succeed, but concerning the major challenges that I'll face, I think each time the answer is the French-German relationship is first a solution. First and foremost, it's the way to start, and it is the beginning of a problem. Is how you get the others on board, and we achieve something collective, because we need European solutions. So we need to get the others on board. What are the main challenges? The first one is to expel the COVID crisis, and in the air industry it's not the case, and in the failure of the last 15 months there was the poor coordination of the European cooperation on airspace and air traffic. You know, we had to go quickly among Europeans, and then everyone took a domestic solution and it failed. So the COVID crisis has to be left behind us. There are opportunities, but a lot of challenges. Second major challenge or major objective is to succeed with the programs we initiated, especially in defense, with France and Germany at the heart of the programs. The most important one is the F-15, you know, the future combat aircraft with France, Germany, and Spain. Huge program, the Eurodrone. We have to transform those projects into success, because we will measure it in over a long time. And the third one, which is the most important, and I hope we'll get there, is what we call the decarbonation of the air industry, which is a much higher challenge than that of the transformation of technologies, put to the service of this challenge of human race for the first time, tech, and which is the energy transition put to the service of climate. Digitalization, decarbonation, the major industrial challenges which are in the transformation. And if we don't get a good French-German cooperation within this energy, technological, industrial, digitalization cooperation, and regulation as well, regulation to create the basis of these new industries, well, at the speed at which we need to go, if this French-German couple is not at the heart, at the core, well, yes, absolutely, great quality of the relation. Is it a solution to Europe? Certainly, it is a solution to the world. Is it sufficient? Probably not. It has to be inclusive, and Bruno and Peter, you will tell us what are the solutions on your side, from your viewpoint, because we have to get the 27 member states on board, and if it doesn't work for the 27, it will fail, because Europe is the dimension that we have to adopt to stand and face China and the US, and if we want to be competitive in tomorrow's world. Thank you, Guillaume FAURY, Peter ALTMAIER, Bruno Le Maire. Just a topical question. Mr. ALTMAIER and Bruno Le Maire did insist that Angela Merkel, by working together with Mr. Macron, has launched a strong commitment for Europe. Will this survive her? Again, you know, there will be a major election. Now, is this going to last? Absolutely, I don't doubt it. But and Bruno said it indeed, let me clarify, the principle, the most important thing was not the debt, it was the solidarity between nations. Countries like France and Germany, for example, benefit more from global growth, benefit more from technological investment. And there are others who were left behind because of the evolutions and who were less favored by the context. And we have to create solidarity mechanisms, and we've lost when we talked about the Eurobonds in 2010, 2020, we lost 5 years without being able to reach a joint solution. And now we've been able not only to get this 750 billion euros, but we've implemented this idea of solidarity, and this made it possible to reinforce the European Union as such. Second point, there will be 2 elections, the presidentials in France in next spring, followed possibly by elections, anticipated elections of the parliament, as it is sometimes the case in France. And there will be elections in the Bundestag in September, and the new chancellor or in Germany, and no one can tell you now ahead what will take place. You know, they have to be known. We have a chance. The chance is to, in the next 5-6 months, we should establish the fundamentals of this improved cooperation in such a way that it will be respected by whoever will be elected afterwards. You know, president, prime minister, chancellor in the 2 countries. This is the true challenge, because if we waste time and wait for a better cooperation in 2 years between the 2 countries, our friends and our competitors in China and the US will have had 2 years to progress, and we have to make our major decisions now. Take our major decision now in the next 3-4 months, and I'm highly optimistic, and I'm sure we will succeed and do exactly that. And I'm very optimistic, not just for Europe, but also for cooperation with the US. Because I was in Washington last week, and for the first time, France, Germany, and the US have the same ideas, have the same values, share the same values, have the same conviction. And the new US administration, the Biden administration, clearly is a great opportunity for the French-German couple as well. So during election periods, you know, often we press the pause touch. Franco, let's have a little Franco-French question. I read this morning in a newspaper the declaration of a major leader of the majority. He says a reform of the pension system before the election would cause a disorder, would create confusion, and was not desirable now. But this is a reform you've been advocating for months. So we have to send a signal that there is a need to restore public accounts. Do you know if the president has made a decision? In what direction? When is he going to tell us? But mainly, you, because we talk about public accounts, says, you know, there is a great difference between Germany. You keep in mind this conviction that we have to move fast, as Mr. ALTMAIER said? Let's not waste time. You're too good a journalist, Elisabeth Martichoux, to think on a Monday morning at 12 o'clock in Aix-en-Provence, all of a sudden I will tell you, here is the date of the reform of the pensions that the president has decided. First of all, I don't know, to be very honest, and the decision, you know, is left to the president. Now, that this question should be addressed and, you know, pondered, you know, is calmly, and to place the discussion at the level where it should stand. That is the life standard we want for us, for our children and grandchildren, because this is what is at stake here. We are a nation which globally, as a whole, doesn't work enough. We don't work enough. Those who work hard, work a lot, efficiently, and with a level of commitment which is amazing. But our level of unemployment, the absurdly departure of the people who are 55 from the labor market is absurd. And this, therefore, will work less than other countries. So compared to our German friends, for the last few years, we become poorer. We become poorer. So if people are happy with the French degradation, good for them, but I don't do politics to validate French degradation. I do politics to make sure that our country will be better and young people who are in the room would have a better life than me. This is my political commitment. And I would rather tell the truth. I'd rather tell the truth, which is that honestly, calmly, avoiding every political controversy and don't turn the topic into a drama. We can, without any brutality, taking into account the entry into active life, long career, of course, the conditions of work. You know, it's not the same thing if you work in the building industry or if you work in an office. You know, it's not the same thing. Okay, fair enough. We're aware of that, and this has to be taken into account. Now, taking into account these realities as concern for justice, individualization, I consider that reform of pensions should be a priority for our country. Thank you. Sorry for this, but okay, just 2 words. Last week, a German journalist asked me the question, Mr. ALTMAIER, do you think that we should increase again the pension year in Germany? And I said, no, I don't think so. I think it's 67 in Germany for the obvious reason. And I said, first, I think we have to find a compromise. That is, we have to work, but we have to have some years of pensions as well. And we've so ahead from our French friends. We just wait for them to do things to act on the pension reform.
Avant de donner la parole à Guillaume FAURY.
Before I give the floor to Guillaume FAURY, a quick word about some topics that are up for discussion in Germany. I don't really think that France is at the center of the election campaign in Germany. Conversely, Germany often features in presidential election campaigns in France. The head of the CDU clearly said, well, when the situation is exceptional measures need to be taken. But when the exceptional situation stops, then you have to stop these exceptional measures. Mr. ALTMAIER, just one word. Oh, me again. Right. Well, my French friends have always been in favor of rules, and we're always in favor of rules in Germany. But there's a divergence with my French friends. The difference, says Bruno Le Maire, is that we don't abide by the rules. Well, yes, pretty much is the answer from Mr. ALTMAIER. So it's the question of flexibility. And we need to acknowledge that we can learn, and it's quite clear as well that the French have put in a considerable effort when Bruno became Minister for the Economy and Finance, and we've consolidated during a number of years and laid the foundations so that we have earned the right to for an exception to the rule of the Stability Pact. But we can't say that we can go on like this for, let's say, 50 years, because there are other countries in Europe, and you all know who I mean, not France or Germany, but they will be facing huge challenges, and they'll have to overcome these challenges, and we can't afford debt to enhance living standards today. No, we can't pile up debt to finance a competitive industry and technology at the highest level of innovation those are things that are important for the future. You should not finance the present to the detriment of the future. We need to take the necessary measures today to make it possible for young people to be competitive and to build the future. Thank you very much. Guillaume FAURY. I don't know if you what your opinion is on pension reform, but this is not our topic. We've heard that there were frustrations as well. Do we really need the Franco-German partnership for Europe to work? I think I've already answered that question. I think we really need the Franco-German partnership. I knew there'd be some political considerations, but I'll try and contribute without being too political. On pension, as well as on other matters, it is important for France and Germany to go on working together. And on differences that can call into question the capacity to work together, and there's enough convergence. Bruno said before that Germany has made a lot of headway on the, joint debt. And I think on the French side, we need to do the necessary work to have better convergence between the two countries so that they can have joint projects. And I think on pension, there's a lot we could do, same as what we did on a budget. So in some areas where there are deepening gaps, there's not only an obligation to do what's right, but we have to do what makes it possible for us to work together. And on pensions, the gap is significant. So we have our work cut out for ourselves on both sides, and I think that work needs to be done. There are two other reasons. There's a need for competitiveness. The Franco-German partnership is important, but it has to be put into the perspective of the EU. It is about competitiveness as well, because taxes and social contributions depend on the power of public authorities. And what of the young people? You know, they don't know exactly how they should react, because we're pushing back pension age. But in the meantime, we have to engineer a number of things so that we can create more balance in society. So yes, the Franco-German partnership is the driving force and is sets the example of the numerous subjects on which we can converge. Time has come to conclude. Hippolyte Dalbis. You know, the father of all economists is Adam Smith, and he said everyone needs a strong neighbor. So we should insist on the fact that it's a great plus to have a neighbor and a partner that is strong and successful. We should not always obsess about how successful Germany is. Ever since I was in high school, I've always heard it said that Germany was doing so much better than France. I think it's a great thing that we have a very strong neighbor. Bruno Le Maire, just a word. Well, thanks, many thanks to Peter for joining us in X. And a quick word about time. There's no time to be wasted. China is not going to wait for us, and the US is not going to wait for us to be ready. We shouldn't wait for the next general elections in Germany or the next presidential elections in France, because then, you know, the French presidential elections will come.